السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله على إحسانه وشكر له على تفضله وامتنانه، ولا إله إلا الله تعظيما لشأنه، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله داعي إلى رضوانه وعلى آله وأصحابه وإخوانه. أما بعد. إخواني في الله, we're continuing with our lecture series regarding the Day of Judgment. Tonight we shall look at the Day of Resurrection. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had commanded, as we mentioned in the previous lessons, He commands Israfil alayhi salam to blow the trumpet, and everyone in the heavens and the earth shall fall down dead. None shall remain except they shall die. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have dominion by Himself. No one shall remain except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, لِمَنِ الْمُلْكُ الْيَوْمِ لِلَّهِ الْوَاحِدِ الْقَهَّارِ. He'll say to His creation, all of them are dead. He says to them, who is the king on this day? Who is the one who has the jabarut? Who has the rulership on this day? And no one of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer. Therein, the Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He'll answer Himself that for Him is the kingdom and the kingship and the rulership of that day. So for 40 will be dead. 40 years, 40 months, 40 hours, 40 millennia, 40 centuries, we do not know. 40, the hadith says 40. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will command Israfil after He resurrects him. He tells Israfil, blow the trumpet a second time. Let my servants come out of the grave, for this is the day of judgment they were promised about. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, وَنُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ فَصَعِقَ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَّا مَنْ شَاءَ اللَّهِ ثُمَّ نُفِخَ فِيهِ أُخْرَى فَإِذَا هُمْ قِيَامٌ يَنْظُرُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that the trumpet shall be blown, and everyone on the heavens and the earth, they shall be shocked, they shall be stunned, like an electric bolt has gone through their body, and they fall dead. Except whomever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills will not be shocked. ثُمَّ نُفِخَ فِيهِ أُخْرَى. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will command for the trumpet to be blown a second time. فَإِذَا هُمْ قِيَامٌ يَنْظُرُونَ. Then they shall all be standing. All of us shall be standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يَنْظُرُونَ أي يَنْتَظِرُونَ. We are waiting for our judgment. Are we amongst the people of the hellfire, or are we amongst the people of Jannah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about this resurrection. He says in a different verse, وَنُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ فَإِذَا هُمْ مِنَ الْأَجْدَاثِ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ يَنْسِلُونَ قَالُوا يَا وَيْلَنَا مَنْ بَعَثَنَا مِنْ مَرْقَدِنَا هَذَا مَا وَعَدَ الرَّحْمَنُ وَصَدَقَ الْمُرْسَلُونَ إِنْ كَانَتْ إِلَّا صَيْحَةً وَاحِدَةً تَأْخُذُهُمْ فَإِذَا هُمْ يَخِصِّمُونَ. إِنْ كَانَتْ إِلَّا صَيْحَةً وَاحِدَةً فَإِذَا هُمْ جَمِيعٌ لَدَيْنَا مُحْضَرُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the trumpet shall be blown the second time, and all of us will rush out of our graves. We rush towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we'll say, Man ba'athana, ya waylana, man ba'athana min marqadina. Woe upon us, who has caused us to wake up from our resting places? We were in our graves resting. Who has woken us up? It will be answered to them, هَذَا مَا وَعَدَ الرَّحْمَنِ. This is the day of judgment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you about. And the prophets, they spoke the truth. It's only one shout, or one scream, or one blow of the trumpet, and every one of us shall be before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, brought forth for the day of account. Ikhwani fillah, this is the day of resurrection. This is the day of judgment, that there is no doubt about it. So the trumpet has been blown by Israfil alayhi salam for the second time. Before the trumpet was blown, ikhwani fillah, in that period of 40, we do not know, is it 40 years, is it 40 millennia, 40 centuries, we do not know. That period, it's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala there. No one else except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands a blessed rain to lay rain. And that rain, ikhwani fillah, will reach every single human being, every single animal, every single of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that died, and their bodies will grow back. And their bodies will grow back. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَاللَّهُ الَّذِي أَرْسَلَ الرِّيَاحَ فَتُثِيرُ السَّحَابَ فَسُقْنَاهُ إِلَى بَلَدٍ مَيِّتٍ فَأَحْيَيْنَا بِهِ الْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ مَوْتِهَا كَذَلِكَ النُّشُورُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that is the one who gathers the wind. He blows the wind, gathers the clouds, and brings rain to a place that was dead, that was not having life. And after it rains, there is vegetation, there is harvest, it becomes lush, it becomes rich, the land. كَذَلِكَ النُّشُورُ. Your resurrection will be the same on the day of judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring a blessed rain, and your body shall grow back forth from a single part of your body, a bone or the back of your back, on your spine, a round bone called the coccyx, or the tailbone, or the round bone at the base of the spine. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will resurrect you from this bone. Ikhwani fillah, like a seed. You take a small seed and you throw it in the ground. No life. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings the rain and it sprouts and it becomes a plant. It becomes a tree. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives it life. You and myself and all the creation of Allah, once we die, all our body shall be eaten by the earth. Our entire body will be eaten by the earth, except for whomsoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills. The only part of our body that will not be eaten by the earth is this part at the bottom of the spine called the tailbone or the coccyx, a round bone at the bottom of the spine. This bone will not be eaten. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will command the rain to come forth, and that period between the two blowings of a trumpet, and your body will grow back. Then when Israfil alayhi salam blows the trumpet, all of us, we come out of our graves, yanzurun, waiting for our judgment, waiting for the day of judgment. Ikhwani fillah, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, Inna fil insani adaman, la ta'akuluhu al-ardu abadan. Indeed, in a human body is a bone that the earth will never eat. Fihi yurakkabu yawm al-qiyamah. On the day of judgment, the person will be reconstituted or recreated from that bone. قالوا أي عظم يا رسول الله. They said, "Oh Prophet, what bone is it?" قال عجب الذنب. He says, عجب الذنب, the tailbone. So إخواني في الله, all our bones shall be eaten by the earth except for this one bone, and we shall be resurrected from this bone the same way a seed gives life to a tree. Our whole full body will grow back from that bone. Question: the earth has been made haram to eat the body of a class of the human beings. Which class of human beings has the earth been made haram to eat their bodies? Half the Quran. The prophets is the one the hadith has spoken about. So the earth shall not eat the body of the prophets. But also some other hadith or athar, we have seen even in our times, some people half the Quran, we've seen they've died 20 years ago, then there's like a flood. And you go to their graves, you find their body, subhanallah, their body is the same as it was when they died. Anas bin Nadr, he died in the battle of Uhud. Years later, like 70, 60 years later, there was a flood in Uhud. And the bodies of shuhada of Uhud were uncovered. And the Sahaba were shocked, and the Tabi'een were shocked that these bodies, it's as if they were buried yesterday. They were bleeding. So the earth, the hadith says, it shall not eat the body of the prophets. But we have seen clearly that it does not also eat the body of shuhada that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala selects. It does not eat of the salihun, of the hafidh al-Quran, and so on and so forth. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst them. The third issue, ikhwani fillah, when you are resurrected, it is not the same Muhammad or the same Umar or the same Sharif that you died. You're a different human being, yet you're the same human being. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, وَيَأْتِيهِ الْمَوْتُ مِنْ كُلِّ مَكَانٍ وَمَا هُوَ بِمَيِّتٍ. The first attribute of this new creation, you when you are resurrected, number one, you will never die again. Death will not happen to you. And that is why the happiest day for the people of Jannah, I shall look later, and the saddest day for the people of the hellfire is when death is brought forth to them in the shape or in the image of a sheep, a black sheep. Now the people of Jannah told, Ya Ahl al-Jannah, and they look. The people of hellfire called, Ya Ahl al-Nar, and they look. And the angel brought forth, do you know what this is? They all answer, everyone answers, they've experienced death. They know what it looks like. They say, Hada al-Maut, this is death. Then death is taken and it's the last thing to die, and it's slaughtered before the people of hellfire and the people of Jannah. And the people of Jannah are told, khuludun, you shall stay in Jannah for eternity, and there's no death thereafter. And the people of hellfire are told, khuludun, fala mawta ba'da dhalika al-yawm. You shall stay in the hellfire forever. There's no death after that day. So, ikhwani fillah, the person who's resurrected on the day of judgment, number one, he shall never experience death. The death you experience in this world is your last death. You shall not experience any other death after that. Number two, you shall not, on the day of judgment, you shall have eyes that are not like the eyes you have currently. Right now we are sitting in this darsa. Alhamdulillah, we have many students. I don't know the number. But we also have your brothers. Don't run away. You have your brothers from the jinn also attending here. You also have the malaika attending here. Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, مَجْتَمَعَ قَوْمٌ فِي بَيْتٍ مِّن بُيُوتِ اللَّهِ يَتْلُونَ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ وَيَتَدَارَسُونَهُ بَيْنَهُمْ إِلَّا نَزَلَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ السَّكِينَةُ وَحَفَتْهُمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ. And the angels, they cover them when you seek knowledge. So the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are present amongst us. Because we are seeking dhikr. This is a gathering of remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The jinn from the Muslims, they're here. They listen to the darsa. The other jinns also, they're there. Perhaps to deflect you from the darsa, to deflect you from good. They're all here. Question, can you see those malaika right now? Can you see the jinn that are beside us? Can you see them? Because our eyes are not able to see them in our current creation. By the day of judgment, we shall be able to see the jinn. We shall be able to see the malaika clearly with the eyes that we shall be granted on the day of judgment. That's a second difference with our new body. Number three, you shall not be able, or the people of Jannah especially, they shall not be the people who spit. They shall not urinate, they shall not defecate. There are no toilets in Jannah. There are no toilets. There's no it's called what? There's no ensuite in Jannah. Jannah is just your bedroom and your sitting rooms and your tent and your wives. There's no washroom. Why? Because you do not spit, you do not urinate, and you do not defecate. Your bodies have changed after the resurrection. So, ikhwani fillah, the bodies of the human beings will change. That's issue number 3 we have taken. Issue number 4, who is the first person that will be resurrected on the day of judgment? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, "Ana sayyidu waladi Adam yawm al-qiyamah." He says, I am the master of the children of Adam on the day of judgment. وَأَوَّلُ مَنْ شَقُّ عَنْهُ الْقَبْرِ. And the first one that the grave shall crack open, and for me to come out is me. So the first one to be resurrected on the day of judgment is the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. He says, "Ana sayyidu waladi Adam." I am the master of the children of Adam alayhi salam. Qari just a reminder, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam is not like one of us. I find it, I don't know, maybe it's where we come from a part of the world we come from. We cannot call elders by their name, true or false. Can you say Abu Bakr? Can you say by their name? It is very improper to address the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam by his name. You find it sometimes some sheikhs say, I believe what was revealed to Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Say, I believe what was revealed to Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Give him his sifa, alayhi salatu salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, لا ترفعوا أصواتكم فوق صوت النبي ولا تجهروا له بالقول كجهر بعضكم لبعض. Do not make how you mention the Prophet alayhi salatu salam the same way you mention your fellow brothers and colleagues in dunya. Give him his status. Ya ayyuha al-rasul, ya ayyuha al-nabi, ya ayyuha al-muddathir, ya ayyuha al-muzammil. In the entire Quran, you will never find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say ya Muhammad. Not single once. Learn from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Call the Prophet by his name. So this is the first person who shall be resurrected on the day of judgment. One day there was a conflict between the Sahaba, or some of the Sahaba, with the Yahud in Medina. One of the Sahaba, he says, وَالَّذِي اصْطَفَى مُحَمَّدًا عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. I swear by the one who chose Muhammad upon all the creation. The Yahudi says, وَالَّذِي اصْطَفَى مُوسَى عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. By the one who chose Musa upon all the creation. The Muslim gets angry. You're competing with me. I'm saying Muhammad and you're saying Musa. And he hits him. So the Yahudi, the Jew man, he goes to the Prophet alayhi salatu salam. And he says to the Prophet alayhi salatu salam, is this how things are going to be? You're competing between yourself and Musa now. The Prophet ﷺ, he says to the Muslims, لا تخيروني بيني وبين موسى بن عمران. Do not make a competition between me or make a choice between me and Musa alayhi salam. There's no need. Musa, Isa, Ibrahim, they are one line of prophets with the same message. They're the same thing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no competition between our prophets. As Muslims we believe, لا نفرق بين أحد منهم وَنَحْنُ لَهُ مُسْلِمُونَ. We do not differentiate. We don't say, that prophet, I know, this prophet is better. Sometimes I hear people saying, the Prophet ﷺ clearly says that the Prophet Yusuf ﷺ was given half of the beauty of mankind. We love our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ so much, true or false. But there's no need for you to come say, Yusuf, Prophet Muhammad is more handsome than Yusuf ﷺ. You don't have evidence for saying that, number one. Yes, it's hamasa, it's your love, but even if you look at it logically, beauty, divide half, give Yusuf alayhi salam. Then you give Prophet Muhammad sallallahu more than half. You have your 100.01% there now. It's gone over 100%. The rest of us have no beauty. Yes. There's no need for competition amongst prophets. So the Prophet alayhi salam, he says, do not make a choice between me myself and Musa alayhi salam. On the day of judgment, when I'm resurrected, I'm the first one out of the grave. But I do not know that I'm the first one out of the grave on the day of judgment. Why? Because I find Musa alayhi salam standing besides the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I ask myself, was he amongst the people who were not shaken by the blowing of the trumpet, or was he not? Because when he was in Jabal al-Tur alayhi salam, he was shaken by the events in Jabal al-Tur. So perhaps those events had a great effect on him, that he was accepted from the shock of that day of Qiyamah. So we do not make a choice, ikhwani fillah, between Musa alayhi salam and the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Ikhwani fillah, the day of judgment is called the day of gathering. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ إِنَّ الْأَوَّلِينَ وَالْآخِرِينَ لَمَجْمُوعُونَ إِلَى مِيقَاتِ يَوْمٍ مَعْلُومٍ. Say, the ones who came before and the ones who come after, they shall be gathered on a place, on a day that has no doubt. Every single one from the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has lived and died shall be resurrected on the day of judgment. Number one, someone decided he'll take a spaceship and go die in space. They shall be resurrected on the day of judgment. Someone was eaten by the shark or the whale and it's in the stomach, resurrected on the day of judgment. The animals, the lion has eaten him. That was the lion's lunch. They shall be resurrected from the stomachs of those animals. If someone was burnt and the ashes was scattered out, all of them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is able to gather their creation. كَمَا بَدَأْنَا أَوَّلَ خَلْقٍ نُعِيدُ. The same way we created you, we shall resurrect you. Creating you was, if there was a challenge, creating you was even more difficult than resurrecting you, if it was a challenge in the first place. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. So resurrecting you is something very easy for us. So, ikhwani fillah, everyone who's died, regardless how they died, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will resurrect them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَيْنَمَا تَكُونُوا يَأْتِي بِكُمُ اللَّهُ جَمِيعًا. Wherever you are, wherever you may be, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will come and get you and bring you. Number two, how many human beings have lived? How many of the jinn are there? How many of the malaika? Human beings. Right now the population is how much? 8 billion. They crossed 8 billion a few months ago, according to the count. We don't know how true the count is. Number two, how many of the jinn are there? How many of the malaika are there? How many of the animals are there? All these numbers of the ones who are alive and the ones who've passed, the ones who've come forth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has all their numbers. None of us should expect that on the day of judgment perhaps Allah will forget me or I'll be missing in the register. Every single one shall be accounted for on the day of judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِن كُلُّ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ إِلَّا آتِ الرَّحْمَنِ عَبْدًا لَقَدْ أَحْصَاهُمْ وَعَدَّهُمْ عَدًّا وَكُلُّهُمْ آتِهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فَرْدًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I have counted all of them. All of them. And on the day of judgment, every single one will come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by themselves. فإذا نفخ في الصور فلا أنساب بينهم يومئذ ولا يتساءلون. When the trumpet is blown, إخواني في الله, there's no mom, there's no dad, there's no tribe, there's no Kenya, there's no nationalism, there's nothing. It's you by yourself. فلا أنساب بينهم يومئذ ولا يتساءلون. You will not say, this is Quraysh, I'm going to fight for my tribe. No, my friend. If it's a choice between my father and myself to go to the hellfire on the day of judgment, may Allah protect all of us, you will choose your father to go to the hellfire. That's how it is. On that day, everyone, he says, nafsi, nafsi. Myself, myself. My kids, my parents, the ancestors, descendants, my brothers, sisters. No, this day is my day alone. So, ikhwani fillah, that's point number 2. Point number 1, we said, wherever you are, wherever you may be, however you died, Allah will resurrect you. Number 2, Allah will not miss a single one of you. Every single one of you will be brought before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't think you'll hide from the day of judgment. I was forgotten. It won't happen. Number 3, all the animals shall be resurrected on the day of judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَإِذَا الْوُحُوشُ حُشِرَتْ. When the wild beasts are resurrected on the day of judgment. So all those animals that are current with us and the ones that are extinct. You saw in the news a few days ago the drought that's going on in the world, in Texas, in China, in Europe. They found dinosaur marks in Texas that's 130 million years. We don't see dinosaurs in our time. Sometimes we think it's fake news. But on the day of judgment, all those creation, all of them, the dodo birds and all those creation that are extinct, all of them shall be brought forth on the day of judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا مِن دَابَّةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا طَائِرٍ يَطِيرُ بِجَنَاحَيْهِ إِلَّا أُمَمٌ أَمْثَالُكُمْ مَا فَرَّطْنَا فِي الْكِتَابِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ ثُمَّ إِلَى رَبِّهِمْ يُحْشَرُونَ. They shall be resurrected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the animals shall be resurrected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also the animals, they shall be judged upon. This animal had horns, and this other animal didn't have horns. So it attacked and killed the one that had no horns, and killed it. On the day of judgment, we turn the other way around. Give the animal without horns to attack this animal, for it to feel the pain, to feel the dhulma as it felt. After Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ruled upon all the animals, what happens? They turn to dust. When the kafir, he sees that all the animals have turned to dust. وَيَقُولُ الْكَافِرُ يَا لَيْتَنِي كُنْتُ تُرَابًا. He says, oh, I wish that my end was like the end of these animals. I wish like that cow, or that deer, or that lion, or whatever animal that has been turned to dust, I wish that I was like that animal. But nay, we mentioned previously, there is no death, there is no end for the person who is resurrected in the day of judgment. Human beings and the jinn, you chose this path, the path of taklif. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the Quran to the mountains refused. To all the creation they refused, but the human beings and the jinns are the ones who took over that responsibility or that obligation. So they shall be held account for their deeds. And for them there is the hellfire, or for them is the paradise. For the animals, it's the end. In Jannah, we have new types of animals that are created for us, especially in Jannah. So, ikhwani fillah, the animals shall be resurrected on the day of judgment. Because of time, we'll stop there, ikhwani fillah. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.